Great entertainment as always, and welcome everybody to day 4 of this fantastic 30th anniversary Airbourne. Oh yes indeed, another great lineup this afternoon, from the Fast and the Furious to the benign to the historic and to the pretty wild and wicked aerobatic individuals that we've got for you this afternoon. And apart from all that, of course, there's plenty around the bazaars to do as well, around the Eastbourne seafront, particularly on the western lawns, where there's plenty of entertainment and activity, certainly for the youngsters to get involved in. I'm joined again this afternoon by Fiona Wallace. Fiona, good afternoon.
Hello, George.
And I hope all is well. You've enjoyed yourself, I hope.
I've had a great time, thank you very much.
Good, that's marvellous. So what have we got to look out for today? What sort of things in between the flying are really good to focus on, do you think?
Well, the Western Lawns, like you say, there's loads to do up there. The kids can get involved with having their photograph taken in an army helicopter, which I think would be great. The Marines have a pull-up bar, mentioned that yesterday, that would be a lot of fun. There's a big inflatable bouncy thing for kids too, but also you can chat to people from all of the forces, really, find out about careers within the RAF, the Army, the Marines. I mean, it'd be absolutely fantastic for any young people who are thinking about where to go next with their, with their career options. So do get up there and have a good look round. There's also lots to eat and drink as well up there.
Oh, well, what a shame. And you can get a hug too, can't you, off one of those big bears?
You can get a hug from
Brilliant.
One of the air bears, Ace or Amy. And if you see any of the volunteers out there with the buckets, if you've got some cash in your pocket, please do pop it in one of the donation buckets, or you can scan a QR code which is on the inside cover of the programme. Or if you are chatting to a member of staff on site and they're wearing a lanyard around their neck, there's a little QR code on the back of the lanyard which takes you directly to donate £2.50, which is less than the price of a fluffy coffee, I believe.
Yeah, too right, and very much more. So do what I've done, exactly the same. You can also go to saveairborne.com and make an online donation, and may I see many more following my name on that website. That would be good, wouldn't it? Okay, well, we've got a huge amount coming your way. We're going to do it in 2 parts today, starting in about 10 minutes time with the fabulous Lancaster, then rattling through a well-promised and exciting cross-section. Give a bit of a tea break around about 3:30, where we hope to be chatting to another personality. Start to this afternoon. The sun just popping out perfectly on cue, and terrific. I know that most of the photographers have been having a great time, because one of the good things with starting the air show just a little bit later is you get the most brilliant angle of the sun. And last night, I've got to say, when the Typhoon finished, it was just glorious, fabulous day, and it looks exactly the same today. So tremendous. But it's, of course, it's great for everybody. Now, one of the things it all works so well is because we strictly enforce all the safety regulations around the air display. That's both in the air, on the ground, and also on the water. I see a couple of people out on the paddle boards already, which is wonderful to see. But first of all, if you've got anything that is likely to go in the air, put it away back in the box and back in the boot of your car now, whether that be a drone, a kite, or a balloon. We do not want to see anything in the air. We had one incursion a couple of days ago, and yes, as promised, that individual will be prosecuted. So it is illegal to do so, and please make sure we don't get any unnecessary effects as a result of that. Now, on the seaside, you can see there's a whole series of buoys out there. We've got some little yellow ones, we've got some black ones, and we've got some red ones. The key thing for you guys down on the beach is the yellow ones. You've got to stay well inside the yellow ones, in other words, near the beach. We don't mind you paddling down there, having a short swim, bobbing up and down on the boards, but please, please, if you go out any further, then you will stop the flying display, and then everybody will be very, very irritated. So bear that in mind. Clearly, you can see boats there. They're the other side of what we call the maritime exclusion zone. The main fly line are those red buoys you see going left to right in front of you, and the rest is all down to us. Clearly, you don't know how we manage the airspace, but we do, with a little bit of help from Gatwick as well, who put a bit of a lid on the top of the airspace around here. But nonetheless, it is all set, and we want to make it as safe as possible and as continuous as possible for everybody during the course of the afternoon.
Absolutely, all of those things incredibly important, but also just on a more sort of basic level on the ground, do look after yourselves and look after each other. The sun may be behind some hazy cloud, however, you can still get burnt, so do use a sunscreen. Make sure you stay hydrated, drink plenty. Also, if you've got small children with you, please do keep a good eye on them. You can pick up a free wristband for your child, either from the lifeguard station or the information stand on the Western Lawns. You can write your mobile number on there, and in case you're separated, you can be quickly reunited. Also a reminder for those people down on the beach, barbecues are not allowed anywhere on the beaches or on the seafront during the air show, and equally bicycles. If you have cycled to the event, that's absolutely fantastic, thank you for that, but please do park your bike at the free cycle park at Wilmington Square or Howard Gardens, as cycling is not permitted through the busy site. And just one last point there is a meeting point as well, and that is the information stand on the Western Lawns, so if you do get separated, that is where to make your way to.
Absolutely, it's the go-to place for all sorts, actually. As you mentioned, picking up the wristbands, things like that. There's some fantastic t-shirts, some really good 30th anniversary commemorative merchandise there to buy, and who knows, perhaps we can encourage a few discounts as we get towards the end of the day. I might even pick up a couple of the t-shirts myself. Well, a couple of minutes to go now, so time to top up the teas, sandwiches, whatever you need, and of course make sure the kids are happy as well and get settled in for a good hour and a half so of flying. And that means we have made contact with our very first aircraft coming in very, very shortly, and a very poignant start it will be for the start of this afternoon as well, because it's the only representative that's currently flying of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight at the moment. You'll be aware, of course, that back in May, very sadly, we tragically lost both one of their Spitfires and the life of squadron leader Mark Long, and it's taken a very, very big toll, and it's been a very tough few months for them on the flight back there. But they have managed to get Lancaster up and running, and the crew's ready and prepared and current to go. So we're going to welcome them very, very shortly. And bear in mind, of course, as we talk about both that tragic loss and, of course, the many things that the flight itself commemorates. Lest we forget is their motto. And it started in a very humble way, very back in the mid-1950s, of course, with just 3 remaining airworthy Spitfires flown for the temperature and humidity monitoring flight up at Royal Air Force Woodvale. And they formed the rump of what was to become the Royal Air Force Historic Flight, as it was called then, from July 1957. And absolutely fantastic how it has developed over the years, with additions and then the establishment of some full-time staff, not many, of course, just 2 officers running the whole thing. But they have a raft of engineers and help. So please stand by now. Coming in very shortly, you may have to crone over the back of your heads. Yes, a massive warm welcome to the Avro Lancaster, the most famous and successful Royal Air Force heavy bomber of World War II. The sight and sounds, and just particularly 4 Merlins, all in formation across that massive great wing. The legend that lives on today and the contribution it made to the freedom of this nation will hopefully never be forgotten. Brainchild of Roy Chadwick, who had to amend an earlier airframe design, one called the Manchester, when appreciating that would be underpowered and also not as capable as the next iteration, which was the mighty Lancaster, the prototype flying in Manchester in January 1941, with the first production Lancaster flying later that year in October, and the first delivery to 44 Squadron on Christmas Eve of that year. Under the captaincy today of Flight Lieutenant Seb Davey, alongside him, JJ Jackson, and a whole raft of individuals today as they're flying back to their base later on. We've had a change of navigators and, of course, the all-important engineers who keep this mighty and venerable aircraft on the road. It just has the most impressive presence. And impressive it was, of course, in operational terms. It achieved the impacts that the senior management of the Royal Air Force and indeed the country needed at the time. Its performance was absolutely outstanding, carrying a maximum bomb load of 22,000 pounds, at a level speed of 15,000 feet of 270 miles an hour, and could cruise routinely at altitudes above 20,000 feet at a range of 200, or with a range speed of 200 miles an hour. And had an extraordinary range as well, with that speed of over 1,500 miles. And what a deafening and imposing threat it must have made. During the course of the next sequences, we'll see both into the bomb bay and a little later on with the undercarriage down, an opportunity to see where all the rest of the brave crew who manned the all-important turret and upper middle guns were all based. A really impressive total of 7,377 Lancasters were built between 1941 and 1946. The loss rate was, of course, quite high, over 3,500 lost on operations and another 200 or so on various crashes and training exercises. So many aircraft were just simply disposed of and scrapped at the end of the war, but luckily we were able to see both 474 and its partner surviving airworthy aircraft from Canada here in 2014. Magnificent sight indeed. This particular aircraft, PA474, was actually built by Vickers Armstrong at Broughton near Harden up in northwest Wales in May 1945. Literally just a few weeks after the European war had ceased, but it was therefore modified to deploy to the Far East against the Japanese as part of the Tiger Force, but didn't quite make that either, and so was stored with just a few hours on the airframe. It was later pulled out of storage, however, to be converted to PR1 standard and conduct aerial survey mapping work in both East and South Africa with 82 Squadron, when it then earned its spurs, flying well over 2,000 hours before coming back to the UK. Seb Davey, a stalwart of the fixed-wing flying world, both as an instructor and as a captain on the mighty Lancaster. Joined the Air Force much the same time as his co-pilot JJ. He went through the University Air Squadron and then on to multi-engine pilot training, flying the Hercules C-130J out of Lynham. And unsurprisingly, on a number of operational detachments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Here now, with the undercarriage down, and let us remember those crews that struggled to make their way back from a lengthy mission across in Europe after a long night, and also those that sadly didn't return with them. All the crews of the aircraft flying with the BBMF all giving up their time at weekends to fly them, and well, they also recognize what an absolute privilege that is, of course. day job for Seb, of course, flying and training as an instructor on the latest fixed-wing aircraft. He was one of the first Royal Air Force's first Airbus A400M Atlas pilots. And when not flying this, well, he cut his spurs flying the Dakota first of all. That Dakota not available at the moment, still under maintenance and refurbishment work. But we hopefully wish them all well, and we'll see the entire flight back in the air next year. So as she flies past once more, let's remember all the others that also supported the Lancaster and its bombing activities, those who flew twin-engine bombers such as the Wellington, and also the other Royal Air Force heavy bombers, the Sterling and the Halifax. But the 73,000 individuals who became casualties, killed, wounded, or shot down, or made prisoners of war. Well, a marvellous way to start the show, and a very poignant one as well, and much more history and also bombing, or a history of bombing aircraft coming your way with a unique Blenheim formation. The Blenheim, of course, very much the backbone of the Royal Air Force at the outbreak of the war in 1939. And I just hope you all enjoyed that. Fiona?
Yes, I mean, wow, it's just iconic, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. We're going to get lots of that, use of that word later this afternoon.
I'm loving your soundtrack as well, George. Absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to take a minute actually to thank some of our sponsors because without them the air show wouldn't be able to go ahead. The Birchwood Group are our silver sponsor this year, and they have been transporting the pilots around Eastbourne from all the different places that they're staying in around the county, and they've been using electric vehicles to do that, so that's really helped with the carbon footprint of the whole air show. Caffins Eastbourne have supported Radio Airborne again for another year, absolutely brilliant, and they will be, Radio Airborne actually will be hosting a fabulous party later on before the fireworks, so really looking forward to that this evening. And yeah,
me
over
too.
to you.
Me too. Well, I'm going to have to move you on actually, because very shortly we've got yet another aircraft coming our way, and it's one that you will enjoy. Tricky little thing to see actually, but I'm about to invite a very good friend to take your seat, and you can go and find me some other guests. Indeed, that's marvellous. Yes, coming up in just a moment, we're going to dip into the training world of the modern Royal Air Force. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Boys and girls, welcome to the 2024 Royal Air Force Tutor Display. My name is Flying Officer Isabel Woods, and I'm the Tutor Display Manager this season. It's a pleasure to display the Grob for you all today. And now, flying in towards you at almost 200 miles an hour is the Tutor Display pilot, Flight Lieutenant Bob Dews. As he pulls up and over, he converts his speed into height to perform his first manoeuvre, the hammerhead. Flight Lieutenant Hughes was born in Carmarthen, South Wales, and started his flying career in the Royal Air Force in 1989, flying the VC-10 out of RAF Bryce Norton, and then as a search and rescue pilot on the Sea King. From the end of this half horizontal, he will push negative 2G to level the aircraft upside down for the inverted pass. This is Bob's first year with the tutor display. He is operating at a base of 500 feet, except the two final passes at 300 feet. The next two manoeuvres are the ballistic roll and the wing over, which Bob can use to gain energy for the next part of the sequence. The ballistic rolls are flown towards you in an off-crowd wind and away from you in an on-crowd wind. Displaying the tutor requires careful energy management due to its low power-to-weight ratio. When not displaying, Bob is a qualified flying instructor on 115 Squadron based at RAF Wittering, where he trains the future generation of Royal Air Force pilots, as well as converting frontline pilots into qualified flying instructors. During his very career, Bob has amassed over 8,000 hours on 15 different aircraft types, which equates to almost a full year in the air. After completing this half Cuban, Bob will enter the slow roll. Get your cameras ready for some great angles. Throughout the slow roll, Bob will skillfully coordinate elevator, rudder and aileron inputs to keep the lift vector pointing upwards, and this prevents him from descending towards the ground. The tutor has a top speed of 212 miles per hour and can achieve maximum positive 6G, meaning that the pilot is subjected to forces 6 times stronger than gravity. Next we have another wing over, a combined pitching and rolling manoeuvre used to turn the flight path through 180 degrees. You'll notice that every wing over is slightly different as Bob carefully selects his flight path to cater for differing wind conditions and aircraft energy states. The tutor is constructed of a carbon composite material and has a 180 horsepower Lycoming piston engine. Bob now rolls 90 degrees while pointing straight up, before completing a stall turn at almost zero airspeed. The two 90-degree turns allow him to continue in the same direction. The tutor is operated by No. 6 Flying Training School in partnership with Babcock International Group, primarily flying University Air Squadron students and RAF Air Cadets. There are 13 air experience flights across the UK that offer flights to up to 20,000 cadets each year, and this could be you if you are between 12 and 17 years old. Unlike the last stall turn, this one is flown conventionally, exiting in the opposite direction to the entry. And in the next manoeuvre, the 4-point roll, Bob will delicately use the rudder to support the nose above the horizon while flying at 90-degree angle of bank. You may have noticed the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund heart on the belly of the aircraft, seen since 2022 to support this fantastic charity. The Benevolent Fund supports Royal Air Force personnel, air cadets and veterans whenever they are in need. We're proud to raise awareness for a charity that gives so much to the whole of the RAF family. You can visit our tent, website or view our tutor display leaflets to access a QR code to donate to the Benevolent Fund today. For those of you that are considering going to university, there are 15 University Air Squadrons across the UK. Students on the University Air Squadrons are taught to fly the tutor by highly experienced military flying instructors. Why not visit our tutor stand today and you can talk to some of the University Air Squadron students about their experiences. University Air Squadrons provide a huge opportunity for personal development as well as a wide variety of adventure training in the UK and expeditions across the globe. We are now in a high energy section of the display, with the Derry turn, quarter clover, and now the loop, which is a quintessential aerobatic manoeuvre. As he pulls up, he is subjected to 5G. Bob aims to pitch the aircraft around an imaginary circle in the sky, and even when inverted, the centrifugal forces keep him pressed into his seat. To Today, the Royal Air Force is recruiting for multiple rewarding and demanding professions and has an exciting future ahead of it with the continued development of our combat and maritime patrol aircraft and UK Space Command. These will soon be joined by the introduction of our early air warning aircraft, the E-7 Wedgetail, and new remotely piloted capabilities with the Protector. The high tempo of operations continues today with aircraft and personnel deployed around the world, operating with NATO and our other allies. Bob now enters the final section of the display with another ballistic roll and half horizontal. I would like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our supporters this season. They are the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund, Squadron Prince and Babcock, who have provided much of the merchandise we are giving out at our stand this season. Bob will now bring the tutor around for his departing wave. This is another great photo opportunity. If you look carefully, you should be able to see him waving, so please give him a big wave back. A big thank you to Eastbourne for hosting us today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the 2024 Royal Air Force Tutor Display.
Marvellous. Very well done indeed. A joy to fly, isn't it? It's very comfortable, cosy, nice touring aircraft.
Absolutely, yeah, you can get down to about 500 feet very comfortably.
So who gets to fly home with him tonight?
Sadly, he's going straight off back to RAF Wittering, so leaving us behind to get in the car.
Ah, well, there we are. Join the queue, like everybody else. Never mind. Well, it's been lovely seeing you again, and I think we may well see you once more again.
You too, George. Thank you.
Very good news. All right. Have a good trip home.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. Well, coming up literally in just a couple of minutes' time, one of the all-time favourites of seaside shows, of course, that is the Wing Walkers. Now, those of you who were here yesterday would have seen one individual aircraft, but luckily today, I'm delighted to say, we are being joined by a second one. That's a bit of zest to the whole occasion. So we're just resetting now, checking that one is clear, making sure the airspace and, of course, the seashore is clear. Just a reminder, those out there swimming or on boards, that's absolutely fine, but you please must stay very close to the beach. Thank you, just to avoid any extra disruption. And a reminder, nothing in the air either. Thank you very much, whether it be drone, balloons or kites. That's great news. Yeah, right-hand side, you can just pick out there in the glare two mighty Stearman biplanes. And they are just going to knock your socks off. It's an absolutely terrific display. It goes inside out, upside down. They do rolls, bumps, and all sorts. And during the course of the entire display, two wonderfully courageous girls, Kirsten and Emma, will be doing their other form of aerobatics on the top of those wings. Please welcome from Royal Flying Corps, Renkham Airfield, the AeroSuperBatics team, the Wingwalkers. Yeah, taking us back to those years immediately after the First World War, when all the young flying aces were pretty much made redundant from operations, and there were a lot of surplus aircraft, and they were cheap to buy as well. And that, together with an interesting story I'll fill you in on a moment, was really the start of the barnstorming years. Very little regulation in those days as well, and literally these guys could just pop in and out of the countryside, fields, roads, wherever it is, and invite all the chums they meet to come flying. Two differently painted aircraft you got here today. The outfit run by Vic Norman up there in Gloucestershire has got 5 of these aircraft, and they all engaged in a lot of different activities, but the formation, the pairs formation you see here today, is one of the best displays they do. Led as usual by Dave Barrell. He's been with the team for a very long time now and has just got squillions of hours, having started out in motor mechanics many years back, doing some parachute and glider tugging, but now the full-time chief pilot for this extraordinary display. And wonderful machines they are too. We'll drop into the cockpits and hear him giving his commands, because alongside him, or behind him at the moment, is Brian Corns, and he's got Emma on board the top of his wing, and they will go through the first sequence of a series of formation flights before then just going a little more aerobatic. Terrific stuff. Of course, the girls, fearless glamour from those pioneering years, but these uprated safety and of course uprated performance aircraft as well, putting on a fantastic show. The aircraft have been modified with extra ailerons and a bigger engine. You hear that rasp there, that is from the massive 450 horsepower Pratt & Whitney radial engine. It's got a 10-foot diameter propeller. It's absolutely terrific. Oh, what a great photo opportunity that is. Terrific stuff. And look at that marvelous split there, right on cue. And of course, all that smoke, not just for aesthetic reasons, but also for safety as well. And you'll be glad to know it's all environmentally sound stuff called Ondina. It's a bit, it's very much like baby oil. So all the time the girls are moving with their acrobatics, the boys doing their aerobatics. They, of course, unable to chat to each other, so all the commands are done on literally hand movements. They push down now. And as they push over the top, all the blood rushing to their heads as they dive down. Absolutely tremendous sight indeed. Speeds up to 150 miles an hour, these girls enduring at the same time as maneuvering around the top of the wing. Well, the young daredevils who caught the flying bug back in the latter end of the 1918 war. In particular, an American flyer called Orman Locklear came up with a stunt that was guaranteed to wow the clouds, and apparently as a result of an experience he had whilst flying an aircraft, and he needed to make an amendment on a bit of maintenance whilst he was flying along, he crawled out on the wing. And isn't that rasp you get there is from that big 10-foot propeller, where the tips virtually go supersonic when all the levers are fully forward. So Ormer, having done it once, decided to do a little bit more work, and he ended up, would you believe, walking from the wing of one aeroplane to another, and then ended up getting a partner with the extraordinary name of Ethel Dare, and both of them together took this sort of flying to a few more adventurous extremes, sadly losing Ormer's life in the making. Of course, all now tightened up. In the late 30s, the Americans introduced a lot of new safety regulations, and of course, this now extremely well rehearsed. The girls wearing safety harnesses as well. But despite that, you will still see them getting out of those harnesses. Yeah, now the aircraft, of course, also famous as a training aircraft. They train literally thousands of pilots across in the United States. It is such a strong, rugged airframe, really built for robust use, landing on rough strips, but also very maneuverable. The addition of those ailerons give them more agility. And the power is necessary to carry the additional load, of course, of somebody on the top of the wing. Now they're about to dive down. Will they go into a roll? Will they go into a loop? Let's see. Smoke coming on now. Just looking magnificent in the... Oh, here we go. Gosh, doing that. Oh. And it's a roll. There you can see the girls, whilst waving, still hanging upside down in the straps. It's very competitive, would you believe, to get a job like this. Kirsten herself was describing how she literally just replied to an advertisement in the local papers up in Gloucestershire, and was amazed how competitive it was. Her background, like so many of the girls doing this, was in circus. She was a trapeze artist, and putting all those skills to good use now in a slightly different genre. Coming into something of a tail chase as Brian tucks up closely, replicating the maneuvers of Dave's input on the controls there. And just the sun, just featuring all the aircraft today beautifully. Bringing all the pizzazz and romanticism to the bush flying environment that these aircraft sort of came from. Wonderful rasp, isn't it? The outstanding engine. That engine itself was designed back in the 30s. Immensely reliable, but very thirsty engine. And here you now see the girls perched on the leading edge in one of their favorite maneuvers called the Wind Rider. Literally, you can just see them hanging onto the harness. They are detached from the harness. So whilst they get a great sense of freedom up there, it does require an awful lot of upper body strength as they need to push forward and hold the positions they're in with very little support behind them. And all the time flying it through about 120, 130 mile an hour winds right in their faces. Now as they come around that corner, they'll probably adopt yet another position. This time maneuvering back towards the rear trailing edge of those upper wings into what they call a cockpit lady. And there you go. Come on, you can't resist giving them a wave, can you? They're bobbing up and down out there over the ocean, waving over to you. And they're not quite in that final position I referenced there, but in this turn I suspect they'll put one foot down onto the cockpit, and that foot will be right in front of the pilots. The pilots, they're not connected by any digital voice. It is literally all done by hands messaging. And meanwhile, the second aircraft there keeping tucked up as close as possible for the next morning, for the next maneuver. Of course, not something you can easily do. All the aircraft you see here today in pilots all have years and years of experience. And every spring they all go through these routines meticulously. So here we go. Come on now, great opportunity to give them a massive way-by. Yes, and there you saw just how perilous they were perched onto the cockpit edge there. Absolutely extraordinary. Of course, the front seat is always left available for the girls themselves to use, both in the transits here and then, of course, on the way back as well. So this time, I suspect they may well have popped back into those spare cockpits to prepare themselves now to leave the display area and fly all the way back up to Gloucestershire. Last chance then to bid your farewell to the extraordinary and the utterly, I think, embracing and enjoyable AeroSuperBatics display, the Wingwalkers. Looking absolutely fabulous in this beautiful arena we have here at Eastbourne. Glorious shot, yes, and that's them just moving in a little bit closer. Get this formation departure absolutely spot on. And that is, I hear David signing off now, that that is complete. And they'll be back off into the wild blue yonder to enjoy their trip home.
Well, it really isn't every day you get to see something quite that special, is it?
Certainly not. You caught me out there.
I did, unlike you, George. So it really is wonderful. The air show kicking off in great style today, and you can help us save the air show by donating, buying a program, booking a fancy seat, or upgrading to hospitality, or joining as a supporter. To donate, if you see any of the volunteers with the buckets as you're wandering around the site, please do pop in. Even £1, even if everyone gave £1, it would help so much. If you do chat to a member of staff and they're wearing a lanyard around their neck, flip it over and there is a QR code on the back of each lanyard which will automatically donate £2.50 to the fund, which would be amazing. But the programs are really special this year. They are 30th anniversary programs, including a 30th anniversary pin badge whilst the stocks last. The programs are £10. They give you all the information you need for the day. Lots of local information in there, games for the kids, all sorts of things. On the inside of the front cover of the program, again, there's a QR code that you can scan to donate money, and that takes you directly to the saveairbourne.com website. There's a competition running in the program, chance to win one of 30 prizes to celebrate 30 years of the air show, all thanks to local businesses. So
indeed,
really
absolutely. I'm going to have a go at that. I've already donated. SaveAirbourne.com, definitely the place to go. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going back to Vietnam. left-hand side now for a very, very interesting aircraft indeed. All the way from Belgium, this particular aircraft has come, and we hope, and I reckon you're really going to enjoy it. It's a thing called an OV-10, otherwise known as the Bronco, an extraordinary machine in the hands of a really passionate individual who set this organization up back in 2010. And heading in now from the left-hand side, the North American Aviation Rockwell OV-10 Bronco, a light turboprop attack and observation aircraft developed back in the 1960s for counterinsurgency combat, and one of its primary missions was as a forward air control aircraft over the Vietnam War. It may look an extraordinary design, but it's an incredibly flexible utility aircraft in so many different ways, as Tony will demonstrate to you very effectively in the next few minutes. The initial concept was brought together by two US Marines who built a prototype in their own garage, believe it or not, before then North American Rockwell developed the prototype for its first flight in July 1965. It went on to serve all three US branches of aviation from 1965 right through to 1995 with the Air Force, the Navy and the Marines. There were original design thoughts and plans to make it amphibious, but that didn't really develop because this could be used in so many other ways. It can hold 2,400 pounds of cargo, 6 paratroopers or 2 stretchers and a medic, but it's also designed, it's got specifically designed landing gear for rough landings, and the aircraft requires virtually no ground equipment at all. So a really independent operator. It's got armor protection, bullet resistant windshields and self-sealing cells also for operating hostile environments. And you can see being able to ramp up the speed. It can loiter for up to 3 hours at speeds of over 300 miles an hour. And there I think Tony demonstrating already the agility of this aircraft. Wasn't just used in the United States. Broncos went to Germany, Thailand, Venezuela and Indonesia as well, and eventually on to Morocco, the Philippines and Colombia. This particular aircraft, you'll see perhaps from the markings, was one produced for Germany to use as a target tug. 18 of these were delivered in the late 60s and were equipped with the towing equipment inside the fuselage. And then eventually a clear dome replaced the rear cargo door, and a rear seat was installed in the cargo bay to look backwards out of the dome. Coming through very slowly this time with the gear down, just going back up now. Slow speed handling, absolutely essential, of course, and that helps the ability to land in those short, rough strips. The German wing of the OV-10 Bronco Association was formed back in June 2000, was chaired by Tony himself of Eureka Aviation in Belgium. These aircraft initially used by the Technische School der Luftwaffe at Fasberg in Germany. And with his and the help of other employees from Lübeck, both his aircraft were successfully prepared and flown to Duxford for full restoration. Showing you some of the strafing work it was able to do, and of course being fitted with a variety of different weaponry, was able to engage the ground troops in a number of different scenarios. the maneuver, not a display maneuver, essentially a roll demonstration, having loosed off whatever the weapons or rounds were, then it was necessary to pull up sharply and away from the threats on the ground. Powered by two Garrett T76, giving us just over 700 horsepower each side, a service ceiling of 30,000 feet, and an incredibly useful range of over 1,300 miles. You can hear bringing the speed up now, all the height, all the pilots use height to add a little bit of energy there. And a massively wonderful topside oblique pass there. Great opportunity for you photographers down there, and for him to get a good look out as to who's watching down there on the beach. Tony amassed thousands of hours now on this aircraft. Very passionate, committed guy, just loves bringing it around to air displays. Chance now to see agility in a different way, and this is a fantastic wing waggle. This is the biggest wing waggle I think you'll see at any air display circuit. Yeah, a full 180 either side. Really outstanding. It's a great position to sit in the cockpit as well. You feel very commanding, you're sitting up quite high, great visibility. And that dome at the back also providing good visibility as well for photography activities. Now, here's a different approach, but once again related very much to Vietnam, and it's what is referred to as the K-San approach. And this is a classic example of not only utilizing the amazing stall performance, but here now you see with the undercarriage down a very, very high angle of approach, and that is to avoid ground fire from any troops that were embedded anywhere remotely close to the airstrip. And this is exactly how it would have been done, and is still practiced today by modern air forces, coming in very, very steeply to then land literally within a couple of 100 yards. And what a shame we don't have that platform available. They were launched off aircraft carriers during the course of the war, but most recovered into landing strips. And Tony there departing off to the right-hand side. He'll be heading back, once he's refueled, back to Belgium later on. But he and his team always welcome, and a very, very popular act indeed. So just a very, very short break now as we wait our next aerobatic act. Something very different. The first of our really exciting aerobatic pairs. Team, the Starlings, in absolutely terrifically high performance aircraft as well. So time to reset. Just remember all the rules. That sun getting quite strong now as well, so please make sure that the kids in particular are being looked after, won't you? It's very easy to get sunburnt with that slightly cool breeze blowing, but I know very enticing in the water. I went for another swim last night. The water is so warm. It's 20 degrees.
No.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's 20 degrees. Absolutely terrific.
Well, how fabulous. But just remember, everyone, to stay safe. Keep an eye on the kids, keep an eye on yourselves. Make sure that you stay hydrated. Do put the sunscreen on. I know it's hazy out there, but you can still get burnt. Please also remember to either take your litter home with you or use the big refuse bins that there are along the prom and in the western lawns as well. And just a little reminder, no barbecues on the beach, please, and no bicycles along the prom. Just another couple of thank yous to some of our sponsors. Euro Self-Drive for helping with transport. The Lansdowne Hotel, the View Hotel, I know, and I think another one as well, I think it's the Cumberland, have been putting up some of the pilots during the course of the air show. More Radio for their support, and PRG Marketing Communications, who actually have produced the absolutely fabulous 30th anniversary programme.
Indeed, and really wonderful thanks to. We're all benefiting. It is a massive team effort, this show, and literally does need everybody to chip in, and that includes you as well. No such thing as a free air show. Do make sure you log on to saveairborne.com. But look up in the sky now. Here, the first of a terrific pairs display from two massively experienced aerobatic pilots. Please welcome the Starlings. Now, this is pretty exciting. It looks benign at the start, and you see them already spitting out virtually this controlled smoke system they have, which is capable of doing so much more in terms of sky typing or sky writing. Two first-class pilots performing high-octane close formation aerobatics, including gyroscopic tumbles and all the other maneuvers that you've seen here so many times. Got a combined aerobatic experience well in excess of 50 years in both the competitive world and air shows, and have flown all over the world as solo acts and as part of other formations as well. Leading from the front, Tom Cassells, who here is dulcet tones occasionally on the radios behind me here. He's he's just an extraordinarily experienced man indeed, well over 4 decades of a font of all knowledge of aerobatics, but a consummate champion as well. And alongside him, equally up at that top as well, the youngest person ever to have been a British aerobatic champion, Michael Pickin. The show will showcase the entire skill and ability of both pilots, both in formation and in opposition maneuvers and opposition aerobatics as well. Using the latest design from Germany, the Extra NG, capable of unlimited aerobatics with roll rates in excess of 420 degrees per second, plus or minus 10 G. It's one of the most modern, purpose-designed and built unlimited aerobatic aircraft in the world. Unlimited meaning, but basically you can do what the aircraft can do and what your body can withstand. And a masterclass here in very tight pairs formation work. These aircraft from the massively successful stable of Walter Extra across in Germany, he himself being the original EA300 former German aerobatic champion back in the late 1980s. The design was tweaked, refined and improved over all those years since, with massive sales across the globe and making one of the most popular aerobatic aircraft running today. It's got an all-carbon fibre frame, state-of-the-art avionics, and a new level of pilot comfort for the aircraft, including, at Tom's request, a heater. We'll occasionally drop in and out as we did with other formations, and you just get a feel for the cadence and the nature very calmly of the way the formation is controlled. At the top of this maneuver, they'll be looking back over the shoulders, not to check their own positions, but of course to ensure that they're on the right fly lane and the wings coincidental with the horizon. And you can see just how tight those two aircraft are together. Absolute confidence and trust in each other. And I can assure you that takes an awful lot of practice. As they pull out of a loop, of course, the G comes on and you have to strain. There are no G suppression equipment on board these particular aircraft. And there you go, on that final cadence of up, that is when the control activity goes in that Michael has to replicate exactly. Calling for rudder now. Yeah, look at that. Absolutely perfect timing. Superb stuff, as you would expect from these two masters of aerobatic competitions.
For the brake, go!
Oh, stunning stuff. Absolutely outstanding. So Tom gained his PPL. He actually was in the army for a while and was bobbing about in a few military aircraft for a while before getting his PPL back in 1983. Flown well over 40 types, well in excess of 7,000 hours, probably a whole lot more since I jotted those notes down. Introduced to aerobatics by Pete Clark. Flying initially a Slingsby Firefly and went on to win various trophies at that. Then he bought him his own Cap 232, which he flew for many years, winning the Icicle Trophy in the same year and was third in the Nationals. But he's been the unlimited national champion for on three occasions. Splitting up now to demonstrate their own individual skills and abilities in freestyle form. Pulling over the top rather than letting the aircraft fall. Wonderful feeling. Going out now to one of our favourite parts of many teams, but particularly this one. This time they'll be adjusting their term just to come back in to make sure it's absolutely in the middle before pulling up together.
Smoke on, go!
And yes, you've guessed it, it is the Starlings' heart. So give your partner, loved one, a good squeeze and a hug. Giving this to all, of course, the volunteers and helpers that have made this such a fantastic weekend as well. Near perfect day for this sort of flying display. Once again, the smoke, all environmentally friendly stuff, not just for aesthetics again, but also for their own safety. Once they put their burst of smoke on, it helps them identify each individual's position in the sky. As is obvious now, it can be very difficult to pick small aircraft out. Diving in, using the energy from that altitude, converting that into additional speed, and then giving it the extra oomph to go up into high-powered aerobatics like this before he rolls it and hangs onto the propeller in a gyroscope manner before letting it tail slide and then tumble tail over prop, all under control for the recovery. Now, if Tom's the senior end of this partnership, Michael's right at the other. Started flying at a very young age, inspired by his father, winning his first aerobatic competition at the age of just 14. He then went on to become the youngest person ever to be awarded a CAA display authorization for display flying. That means he's able to examine, observe, and then qualify other pilots to do this sort of flying. At the age of 23, the very youngest ever British Advanced National Aerobatic Champion. He's performed all over the world as a solo display pilot and part of formation aerobatics teams, but he's equally passionate about vintage aircraft flying. And that, of course, is when he's not playing with the day job, which is flying a few commercial aircraft in the Boeing fleet, 75s and 767s. So Tom about to hand over the reins. You can see Michael up there waiting in the wings out at depth high in the sky as Tom bleeds the speed off, just gives the aircraft a nudge, then lets it hang and literally looks as though it's in a flat spin, but all under control, recovering the aircraft. Oh, and just adding a few more rolls in for good measure as well. So coming in from high altitude now, once again, using that height, turning it into speed and energy to pull up into another extraordinary set of maneuvers. Oh, sliding it there at the top, absolutely really neat maneuver, before then putting it through a few more rolls and keeping those rolls going as he points it back towards the ocean. Really agile aircraft. Remember, 420 degrees a second is pretty fast maneuvering. It's also extraordinarily exhausting work. Doing anything like this, you'll see more of that after the break with Richard Goodwin, of course. And I just love that. Now, that's a classic maneuver, sliding across the sky whilst climbing at the same time. Okay, so I hear them chatting away. This is coming towards the end. Oh, another beautiful slide. Isn't that just gorgeous? A lot of cross-controlling there, a lot of experience, and into what looks a simple maneuver, but I can assure you it absolutely isn't. So Michael's now looking out for Tom. You're picking up over the left-hand side there. and tuck in for their next maneuver, which again is something of a masterclass of pairs formation flying. Very tight, and if you keep a close eye on them, you'll see what Tom is about to do next.
Rolling in 3, 2, 1.
And there he goes. Tom is now inverted. He's going to fly all the way along the fly line like that, hanging in his straps, while Michael literally tucks in tight right under the tail of Tom's aircraft. Really, really close, really terrific piece of formation flying. And pulling out now, and there we go. Very swift, very neat, very crisp maneuvers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Starlings. Fabulous, aren't they? Brilliant pair of guys. You could listen to Tom, I can assure you, for hours and hours, as I did just a few weeks ago. Charming chap, just oodles of knowledge and experience, and put an aircraft into a corner that most people perhaps wouldn't even have thought or would dare to do. Fantastic stuff. Fancy a go at that, Fiona?
Yes, can I be upside down, please? That was absolutely incredible. And talking of incredible as well, there's a few great things coming up this evening. I'm sure it's not too early to mention that there is the 30th anniversary fireworks finale. Look out for some absolutely incredible sequences inspired by D-Day and the Red Arrow's Diamond Anniversary and 30 years of Airbourne. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic display. That's supported by the Eastbourne Hospitality Association, Elite Medical and Frontier Fireworks. The party starts from 8 p.m. with Radio Airbourne, who are supported by Caffins, and the fireworks are at 9 o'clock. And just whilst I've mentioned Elite Medical, actually, thank you very much to them for being here. They are here across the site all day. If you do have a first aid emergency, please do get in contact with a member of staff or a volunteer, and we can get Elite Medical to you. So keeping everyone safe out there, look after yourselves and look out for each other. In the tea break coming up, we're going to have a chat with Simon Grove from PRG, who has been instrumental in producing this year's 30th anniversary programme, which is absolutely fantastic and packed full of really interesting things, all about Airbourne itself, the 30th anniversary, the displays, lots of stuff for kids, lots of stuff about the local area. If you're visiting Eastbourne and you want to know what's going on and you want some things to do this evening, then please do pick up a programme, and that would be great. Over to you.
Well, look at what is heading our way now. Yes, the most magnificent formation of the afternoon, and a very special treat, commemorating in parts the 80th anniversary of D-Day, but also the very early years at the front, the mighty Bristol Blenheim. The Blenheim formation from Duxford. Flanked by both the Mark 9 and a Mark 11 Spitfire, unique in both instances. More of that a little later on, but what we're about to see, led by John Romain at the front end of this wonderfully restored and unique Blenheim bomber aircraft. The most populous aircraft that the Air Force fielded in 1939, quickly outmaneuvered and outgunned, however, and taken on, of course, then by the speed, style and elan of the extraordinary and successful Spitfire range of aircraft. We'll see a few formations. Let's just sit back and enjoy those for a few minutes before each aircraft gets an opportunity to show its own style and skill set off. Leading from the front there, the Bristol Blenheim, a British light bomber aircraft designed and built by the Bristol Airplane Company and used extensively in the first 2 years and in some cases throughout the Second World War, was developed initially as what was just designated Type 142, a civil airliner, in response to a challenge from Lord Rothermere to produce the fastest commercial aircraft in Europe. First flew in April 1935, but the Air Ministry themselves were so impressed by the performance that they ordered a modified design as a Type 142M for the Royal Air Force as a bomber. And deliveries of this newly named Blenheim to Royal Air Force squadrons commenced in March 1937. The original name of Bolingbroke didn't last very long. It was respectively changed back to by the Air Ministry. An extraordinary 4,400 of the Blenheims were built, and they went on to be delivered also to the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Finnish Air Force, and the Royal Yugoslav Air Force, remaining in service in Finland right up until 1958. Blenheim was one of the first British aircraft with an all-metal stress skin construction, retractable landing gear, flaps, a powered gun turret, and variable pitch propellers. At the time it came into service, it was faster than most of the fighters of the late 1930s, but was quickly overtaken by development of monoplane fighters, which made most of these bombers particularly vulnerable, especially in daylight. And thus the Blenheim went on to prove more successful as a night fighter. At the end of this run, the aircraft will then break formation. You get an opportunity to see each of them perform individually.
Blenheim on the brake. Go.
And there's John calling the brake as the fighters pair off to the left-hand side for a short alignment, give an opportunity to see this magnificent aircraft in its own right. A terrific success in many ways, and it's a real pleasure to see John back here with us, having painstakingly spent many years putting this back together. So not only was it fast, not only was it the mainstay with just under 1,100 of these Blenheims in service, it bore the brunt of the early war bombing effort, and its crews paid a very heavy price indeed for defending the nation. It was pressed into roles it was not designed for, such as the long-range fighter and night fighter roles. But it became very much the first multi-role aircraft. The crews were very much fond of the aircraft, and even Winston Churchill paid homage to their bravery, comparing them to the charge of the Light Brigade. One of the extraordinary stories to come out of the restoration of this aircraft was that of the cockpit, which was found in a completely independent operating environment, being used, would you believe, as an early electric car. Well, thank goodness they found it, because that helped speed up the refurbishment of the other parts and pieces, and much of it remanufactured, of course, to bring this very, very historic and important aircraft back into flying service. At the outbreak of the war, Blenheim's equipped a total of 2 home-based squadrons, as well as 11 overseas squadrons, would you believe, in Egypt, Aden, Iraq, India and Singapore. During the course of that time, crews were converting to the improved Blenheim Mark IV, which had just entered operational strength by the outbreak of that conflict. In fact, it was a Blenheim that was the first British aircraft to cross the German coast to perform a high-altitude reconnaissance mission upon the German Navy in the vicinity of Wilhelmshaven in Lower Saxony. The very next morning, 15 Blenheims from 3 squadrons set off on one of the very first bombing missions to attack the ship spotted on the previous day. Coastal Command was then, of course, soon using the Blenheim with the stated mission of protected British shipping convoys off the east coast. Relatively light armament early on, just 1.303 Vickers VGO in the turret and 1.303, a Browning machine gun in the port wing. Was not enough. And as John pulls it round for its final pass, the fighter's position high in the sky to replace him. And our congratulations to John and the team back at the Aircraft Restoration Company in Duxford for not just getting this back together, but maintaining it, hopefully, for many decades to come. The Blenheim. So keep your eyes peeled now as John Gowdy leads the uniquely historic pair of Spitfires. Back in, coming in very shortly, I hear him on the radio now. Diving back in, coming in now from our left-hand side. Produced in greater numbers than any other British combat aircraft before or since the world. Well over 20,000 Spitfires were built in 22 different variants, and the aircraft remained in production for 12 years. Its maiden flight took place in March 1936, and Mark I Spitfires entered Royal Air Force service with 19th Squadron in August 1938. Brainchild of R.J. Mitchell and his very, very able team. Sadly, Mitchell himself was unable to see the phenomenal success of this design. The classic elliptical wing, of course, the speed and agility that the Spitfire brought alongside, harnessed with the early Merlin engines to make a significant impact on the outcome of the aerial war. Here we see two aircraft from the latter end of the Second World War, by which time the development potential of the original design had allowed the Spitfire to establish and maintain the air superiority so vital to the defence of Britain, and keep pace, of course, with the improvements in performance of enemy fighters as well. Spitfires fought in every operational theatre of the war and remained in frontline service right up until 1954. And you will recall that just a couple of years after that, the remaining 3 Mark 19s used for the temperature and humidity monitoring squadron formed the Royal Air Force historic flight leading to the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. These 2 aircraft also belonging to the stable of the Aircraft Restoration Company, however, where so many Spitfires have been produced and maintained by John Remain's terrific outfit. Pulling up there you see the Mark 11 leading the Mark 9, both in their D-Day livery. By the end of the war, the Spitfire carried an engine producing more than twice the power of the original. Its maximum takeoff weight and rate of climb had more than doubled. Its firepower had increased by a factor of 5, and its maximum speed had been increased by a third, all essentially in the same airframe. All the pilots are privileged enough to fly these aircraft, very, very gentle with them. They know that they are flying a unique piece of history. And their position now coming into a very gentle barrel roll. Just 2 Mark 11s remaining in airworthy condition. The design initially to perform high-altitude, long-distance photographic operations. Armaments have been removed from these photographic elements. This type, very famous for many exploits, including taking the initial images of the dam busters raid to prove the extent of damage to the dams. Extra fuel tanks were added to increase the range, and in a sense, therefore, the only defense that the 11 had was height and speed. First flew in October 1944 and saw active service from 1945 onwards, taking photographs across Europe as part of 4 Squadron before transferring to 2 Squadron in Germany following the end of hostilities. Flying alongside John in the Mark 11, the Mark 9. Came out of the Castle Bromwich production line as a single-seater initially, as an LF9. Delivered to Merville in northern France following a bit of spare time, and then immediately pressed into service with 33 Squadron. part of the 2nd Tactical Air Force. Got involved in a lot of air-to-ground activities, strafing targets such as rail and road transport convoys, and saw 20 operational sorties in total with 33 Squadron before being replaced by the Hawker Tempest. It's got an interesting history though, and of course this is a very different aircraft. As you can see, it's unusual to see the two-seater, which you'll see back in the air in just a moment or two, whilst we concentrate on the Mark 11. They all have fascinating histories. This one was actually gifted to the American Air Attaché at the time, Livingston Satterthwaite, for personal transport use. Still wearing its photo recce blue colour, but the roundels obviously overpainted. It featured in a number of civilian air races and broke the national 100-kilometre closed circuit record, recording an average speed of 313 miles an hour. Johns is coming in for his final individual manoeuvre now, which will be a barrel roll, again carving a lovely, lovely big wide turn as if going round in a huge, huge beer barrel. An absolute joy to see in the current conditions. And the paint scheme looking terrific, having been restored and fully refurbished and rebuilt by the Aircraft Restoration Company some time ago. We're graced with terrific presence here. Every show should have a Spitfire, but today we have three, all of them with a unique history. Here Mike Collett putting it through its paces. Again, having gone through a full rebuild, back to flying condition through the Aircraft Restoration Company once again. Even providing the legendary Supermarine test pilot Alex Henshaw an opportunity to fly this again before he passed away. Been painted in many different colours, this particular aircraft, for various activities during his time with the Irish Air Corps, the Royal Netherlands Air Force, use in the Battle of Britain film, and 33 Squadron. and has now carried thousands of passengers in its rear seat. And this is something you can do now across the country, but if you are in East Anglia and you get the opportunity to go there and you wish to have a go in a Spitfire, then just go to aerialcollective.com, and you get the opportunity to book in your own flight in this very aircraft. They emerged in these particular colours just over a year ago, depicting the history of Group Captain Peter Russell, Johnny Walker. Now part of Aerial Collective's in-house Warbird Experience company, spend much of the year giving passengers the experience of a lifetime from their home base in Duxford. And there, off into the wild blue yonder. Arcing high in the sky, coming up to the final pass. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the first half of today's flying display. We now take about a 45-minute tea break. So you know what to do. Make use of all the outlets. Take obviously a bathroom break, whatever you need, and top up the kids' ice creams and teas and sandwiches and everything else, everything you might need. And also make use of what's going on around us.
Yeah, there's lots of interactive displays up on the western lawns. You can see the Chinook facsimile. There is an Army helicopter that you can have your photo taken in. Lots of fun stuff to do up there. The Army have a few challenges. You can test your courage on the climbing wall or experience life in the Army through a virtual reality headset, which sounds like a lot of fun. So yeah, do get up there, make the most of the food, the drink, and chat to the representatives of all the different forces that are there. And we will be back in a few minutes with a very interesting guest to chat to.
Yep, just a couple of minutes' time. We're hoping to chat to Simon Grove from PRG Comms, who I understand has done a huge amount to help keep this show on the road. but it's time for our tea time chat. And we've had some really interesting conversations during the course of this week with the likes of Josh Babarindi and, of course, Margaret from the council. But today we're going to take a little look at external help and the sort of people that help to keep the show on the road, but perhaps very much unsung heroes or unheard of. I'd like to welcome Simon Groves. Simon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, nice to meet you.
Well, it's lovely to get you in here. And you're from an outfit called PRG Comms. I have not got a clue. I've got some idea how much work you've been putting in. Tell us, what does PRG Comms do?
Sure. Well, PRG is a family business. We started 44 years ago. In fact, it's my father that started. We came out originally as a PR company, and then over the years we've morphed into full marketing services, website development, graphic design, and digital marketing. We've got quite a mix of clients. We've got a load of local work, which I'll talk about in a minute, but then quite a selection of national and international clients, companies like Toshiba, Carrier, Chubb Fire and Security, big names like that in fire and security and air conditioning, that kind of thing.
And I reckon you've had something to do with this jolly smart glossy program, is that correct?
Yes. I can't take all the credit. In fact, I can't really take any of the credit for it. It's my graphic designer, Matt, who's been responsible for putting this all together on a pro bono basis to support something that we as a company absolutely love, and that's this airshow.
Okay, so, I mean, you've batted that off a bit lightly because the program has got everything. It's got all the information, it's got some fantastic photography, and I can imagine that actually is quite a lot of work from your graphic designer.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine that's not a simple thing to do. And of course, there's always deadlines attached to this sort of business.
Incredibly tight deadlines with this. It's a project that we'd 10 years or so ago, we did some early programs for the airshow, and we haven't done it in recent years, but we offered to do it this year. But we were well aware of the tight deadlines, getting the information very late from the RAF. The council do their best to try and get it to us as quickly as possible, but we were ready for it. A few late nights for Matt, getting it all prepared. But we're very proud of what we've been able to produce this year.
Which is great. Now, you know, in today's world, tight money and everything else, tight timings, there's got to be a bit of a two-way street here, hasn't there? So you and many other sponsors have got to get something back from the show too to make it work. What do you think you've gained by being involved with Airbourne?
Well, Airbourne brings 250,000 people to the town, if not more, and you can see looking on the beaches today how many people there are around. We've been able to advertise ourselves through the programme. The council have been fantastic about connecting us via social media and promoting us, and if you look at the big screen on the beach, you'll see our video advert rolling through multiple times an hour, which we're very pleased with. So for us, it's just about exposure, but giving back to the town as well. Yeah,
well, I reckon exposure is something that actually my wingman here, Fiona, could do with. Now, she's a buddy. She is a superstar, but she's been in the waiting for 2 decades. Okay,
oh, thanks,
so
George.
we need a break in the West End stage. Can you do anything to help Fiona?
No, I'm not a West End stage type of person. I'm a musician, and I do play a lot locally. But and I teach. But so talking about the town, then, are you from Eastbourne? Did you grow up here?
Yes. Born and bred in Eastbourne, and the business has been in Eastbourne for 44 years now. My wife Jo works in the business with me. She's our finance director, and I'm here today with her and my 2 children as well. They're up in the pilot's lounge there.
I love it. I bet they're loving it.
Yeah.
Did you grow up coming to the air show? Happy memories of it?
Oh yeah, I'd say I've been every year. I must have been. Yeah,
okay, so you're a big fan anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
That's absolutely brilliant. And so you're saying you do quite a lot of work locally as well, supporting other local businesses and ventures?
Yes, a few examples you see in the high street. We've rebranded what was Coffee Republic into the Tall Guy Coffee next door to Barclays there, and we've worked with Handpicked Flowers, rebranded them from being Janet's Flowers.
Oh yeah.
I'm a director of Eastbourne Business Improvement District as well, so we get very involved with trying to work on the town centre.
Okay, yes. So there's a whole section in the programme from the BID, I understand, to help people understand what was available in the town, you know, what facilities there are, things that they can go, do, see, and all that kind of thing. So you've put that together.
Yes, that's us as well. It's part of the remit of the bid is just to try and showcase the town centre, the great offerings and retail, restaurants and things you can do there. Working on the security and the visual appearance of the town.
We've got a lot here. We've got a lot, haven't we? Because we've got a vibrant town centre, but then also, as we can see here, fabulous seafront, and then you've got the South Downs right there. So, I mean, I always think it's just such a wonderful location, Eastbourne. And so going forward with the air show, will you be involved again?
Yes, I've just had a conversation with a few people actually and offering our support again for next year. And I would say to any businesses out there listening to this, get involved. There's lots of sponsorship opportunities, lots you can do. We brought clients down from London on Thursday for the hospitality on the seafront there. Absolutely fantastic. A load of clients from up in Leatherhead and London, they got to experience Eastbourne at its absolute best.
That's brilliant, because you do have the new hospitality areas this year, so there is that little bit of luxury.
Incredibly good value.
Yeah,
You're a
isn't
businessman, and I travel around the country a lot, and I reckon that's very good value. I'm glad you touched on the other businesses, though, because clearly this whole show is a team effort. You know, even the public have got a part to play as well. But a lot of the businesses, mainly the perhaps the retailers, the cafes, the shops, the hotels, all gain a lot from it. What would your message be to those who are not involved as to what benefits they will get? And I'm thinking about there must be other, like team building and also stretching your staff's experience outside the norm. Are all those valuable as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You've got so many fresh faces in the town. It's your chance to showcase your business to them, get them to come once, and they'll come back again. Get out there, promote it, get involved wherever you can, and just meet new people, get new clients in. It's a huge opportunity.
Brilliant. Simon Graves, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real insight, and I wish you well, and on our personal thanks on behalf of obviously the council as well for all that you've done to help the show this year.
Absolute pleasure. We'll see you next year again.
Brilliant. That was Simon Graves from PRG Comms, and may we get many more friends like him on board Airbourne for the next few years. resume flying this afternoon with 4 superbly different and varied acts coming your way, of course, culminating in the mighty Typhoon. Check you got everything with you. Keep close hold of all your belongings. Those out swimming and in those boards and kayaks and things, please make sure you are back close to the beach before we start flying. Just 3 minutes to go. Astonishing solo display act from a seagull right here at the center of the crowd area on the beach. Absolutely determined to get somebody's final crisp by the look of it, and preparing us for the next hour or so of excitement in the air. So just a reminder, no drones, balloons, kites, anything like that, to make sure they stay firmly in the boxes. And the swimmers, please stay close to the beach now for the next hour whilst we continue with the flying. Do not go beyond the yellow buoy markers. And just a reminder, yeah, look, that sun is still quite strong, you know, and although it's a bit cooler in parts, make sure that the children in particular looked off sunscreen, hats, plenty of fluids, all that sort of thing as well. If you find anything remotely suspicious or of concern, then do please chat to any of the friendly stewards around the place here. Indeed, lots of policemen as well. But keep your eyes open now to the right-hand side for something not entirely completely different, but definitely looking somewhat madcap. And this will be a hair-raising experience if you've never seen Richard Goodwin in the amazing Jet Pits. And there he goes, his unique and trademark entry to every air show he does, turning the aircraft on its side in a knife edge, looking down you from just 100 feet as he uses the fuselage for as an extra wing to keep him going into the start of this amazing display. He's been there, done it, upside down, inside out. He's just spent years and years developing both the aircraft and his own skill set, which he now does to an absolutely extraordinary level. Developing this old plane over a course of 4 years, rip-roaring aerobatics, pinwheels, hammerheads, Lomchevacs, avalanches. He's got the whole catalogue of unlimited manoeuvres in his head, and it's up to him for the next 8 minutes or so to package them all into a display. Starting off, hanging in his straps there, you may remember Richard flying many years ago in his red and white Union Jack G-Whiz aircraft. And now, after many, many years, this Jets Pits, sadly without the Jets actually performing today, but nonetheless that doesn't hold him back one iota. He's got air display flying in his blood. His father was a famous hunter display pilot in the Royal Air Force. When Richard joined the Royal Air Force, he went to the front line in Tornadoes before then taking up commercial flying. Although in those days, flying upside down as much as he does now, as you can see, wasn't so much in that form of flying. But now he does it at least 5 times a week. And maybe not necessarily always in displays. He has to keep training at this, has to keep current. He has to keep very familiar with the G-forces, both positive and negative. Now, this is no ordinary Pitts. Back in the mid-1940s, a guy called Curtis Pitts across in the States came up with this idea to build the ultimate competitive aircraft, and did exceptionally well too, and made famous by some great aerobatic pilots across in the United States. One of them, a lady called Betty Skelton. Her airplane so well known in those days that it now hangs upside down in the Smithsonian Museum just outside Dallas Airport. It's another section of the Smithsonian Aviation and Space Museum. So to tell us all about the differences of this aircraft compared to those 40 and 50 years ago when they were even very well known in Britain, I've got Colin Hales, who's the chief engineer for Richard, who spent a lot of time, and I suspect with angst scratching his head. Colin, why is this aircraft so different?
Well, it's actually a 2-seat aircraft, but there's no room in the front cockpit for anybody else. We have 3 fuel tanks in the front cockpit, and we have a tank for the aviation fuel for the piston engine. We have a tank for the jet turbine fuel. Unfortunately, we don't have the jet turbines on today. And we also have a smoke tank to create that smoke that you can see coming out of the exhaust. So that aircraft inside is very, very complex. It's like a micro brewery inside there. There's pipes going everywhere.
Oh, that's a great description, but clearly not a beer inside.
No, that would not be allowed.
No, that wouldn't be the right thing to do, would it? Anyway, now he's got bigger wings. He's no doubt tweaked with the ailerons as well. And the undercarriage I know is stronger, and the engine is pretty beefy too, isn't it?
Yeah, we've put on a cold air induction system and a tuned exhaust. We've pushed the engine to basically as far as we could, and then Richard wanted more power, and therefore that was the request to bolt on the 2 jet engines, which unfortunately we don't have with us today.
Having blown them up, which wasn't very helpful, Colin, I think you should have done better there.
Indeed, we lost one at Blackpool. We didn't lose it, it was still on the aircraft, but no, we lost an engine in Blackpool, and we can't bring you the jet display today. Okay,
we'll forgive you for that, but it strikes me, having seen the 2 displays, that actually there's only a really minimal difference, and that's all about the energy and the power to weight ratio, isn't it?
It is. The aircraft produces from the piston engine and the propeller around about 1,200 pounds of thrust. The aircraft weighs 1,500 pounds. So there's not really quite the power to weight ratio we need. With the jet engines, we could add another 700 pounds of thrust, and therefore have more thrust than weight, and therefore the aircraft could climb vertically, and it could also hover.
It's just fantastic, and we're loving this hovering manoeuvre as we see here. He's got a tiny bit of forward speed just to keep the air flowing over the wings, and you can see that demonstrated by the smoke he's just put on there. It doesn't look as though he's moving very far, but it's just enough to stop him from falling out of the sky.
Indeed, we need about 15 miles an hour of wind flowing over the actual ailerons to counteract the torque of the big piston engine and the big propeller on the front of the aircraft. If it was to come to a complete hover, then actually the torque of the propeller is almost as constant and great as the control in the opposite direction for the airframe. So indeed the airframe will rotate around the propeller as well as the propeller rotating around the airframe.
Gosh, that gets terribly complicated. And your head keeps spinning whatever angle it's going in, doesn't it? And this is something he has to overcome as well. But once again, just showing you the unique characteristics of this aircraft. This time he lets the weight of the aircraft and the engine tumble downhill. But this is advantageous as well, turning this downhill run into maximum speed and therefore giving him the energy to climb upwards into another series of rolling and tumbling maneuvers. Slick rolling it up on the way up, left then right, and then choosing another way, going half inverted, pulling then over the top and bringing back on positive G, making life all a lot more pleasant.
Indeed, Richard will be pulling about 6G in some of these extreme manoeuvres. He's not got a G suit on, so those 6G he's feeling, and also the negative G, the blood will be rushing to his head.
Yeah, it's something, as I mentioned earlier on, you've got to physically train for this. So you've got to have strong muscles and also the right breathing exercises as well, and straining exercise to enable you to get through the maneuver without the blood all draining down to your legs, or conversely going to your head, which is even less pleasant.
Indeed, Richard is ratchet strapped into that aircraft. Normal harnesses aren't sufficient to hold you in place, so there's 2 big ratchet straps as you'd see on a lorry or something, and we put Richard into the aircraft, ratchet him up.
Well, quite right now, where he's not just inverted, but he's now pushing, so the negative G is increasing as he's climbing in there. Very, very unpleasant. So the force on his shoulder straps will be very strong indeed.
Indeed. And then there's a lot of training that goes involved. Richard just can't go into these maneuvers at the beginning of the season. He has to actually become G tolerant and build up to the maneuvers that you're seeing today.
Yeah, it looks horrific to me. I tell you, if you want to practice, no, you better not. I was going to suggest you jump inside a washing machine and just put it on fast spin, but that would be equally uncomfortable. Don't think they make them that big either, but I can't think of any other way you could replicate what it must look like to look out of the window of Richard's aircraft when he's doing this. So a bit of a pause there, a bit of a cooling moment, just getting his thoughts together, a little breather, checking all the T's and P's in the cockpit, make sure everything is functioning normally before he then stuffs the nose down, puts the smoke on, and starts building up that speed again, whilst just putting in a few quick rolls for good measure. Keeping it sky-high, using all that energy, just letting the speeds bleed off until there's virtually no forward speed left on the clock. And again, he tries to hold it, but lets it tumble down through the smoke. Power back on, head together, back up for another high G climb. And of course, you've got to pull the G to stay within the display area. He could, of course, carry on doing climbs like that, but they'd be very shallow and take him about 2 miles in the wrong direction.
Indeed, conditions are not that so easy today. There is quite a strong wind blowing from right to left, and with every manoeuvre, he has to make corrections to remain inside the display area.
And I think we can see that drift coming in markedly. The smoke is the obvious indicator, but then the aircraft itself drifting to our left-hand side, pushes it again over the top. Flat spin-ish, brings the spin under control, winds it up, then comes out very quickly. Enthralling stuff, absolutely captivating, Richard's routine. Very dedicated, committed professional. Has a background in engineering, which helps immensely, of course, when you're developing your own airplane as you do. And then in this bend here, once again, pushing outbound, so the negative G really coming on strong there.
And indeed, it is his own aircraft. People believe that he bought the aircraft, but you cannot buy this aircraft. It comes as a kit, basically, and then Richard has gone around the world getting the best components, the best parts to extend and create the best, most unique display aircraft that we see on the display scene today.
And it is certainly one of the most exciting displays. Well, we're almost into the last couple of minutes here. He'll put it back into this knife edge. And I don't know how much lift you get, but you do get lift support from the fuselage, don't you?
Indeed, there's thrust there coming from the propeller as well, but the side of the fuselage is acting as a lifting moment. You can see the airflow in the smoke, and that will actually add lift to the airframe to keep the aircraft from descending. Yeah,
you would never have expected that, would you? But it's really helpful to keep him a stable position while he does that manoeuvre. And of course, he's well known for ribbon cutting, using exactly the same technique as well. And he's actually done it between hot air balloons in flight. He regularly chases fast cars up and down runways as well. And once again now, demonstrating the hover. If he leaves it much longer, you'll see the aircraft twist under those gyroscopic conditions that Colin was explaining, but he's managing to hold it level now with a bit of forward speed. Very little of the aircraft dropping slowly. Boof, there we go. Let's unstall it, go flying. And that's Richard Goodwin signing off with his usual wing waggle with the jet pits. Well done, absolutely superb. And our thanks to Colin there for giving us a bit of inside information. Really, really valuable.
And as Richard departs, I shall also depart. Thank you very much again for a fantastic atmosphere, fantastic weekend.
Yeah, I'm glad you joined us, Colin. Really good fun. I'll give our very best wishes to Richard.
I certainly will.
So the next act's already on the doorstep. I can hear them chatting away. Just a couple of minutes to spare. Just a little reminder now about activities around the park. Of course, we've got the big fireworks coming up later on, so no reason to dash off at all. The Western Lawns remaining open for a little while afterwards. And hopefully you can enjoy all the pleasures of a lovely summer's evening here in Eastbourne.
Yes, absolutely. The pop-up park at Victoria Place is open until 9 p.m. tonight. That is the seafront end of Terminus Road. Lots of food there and live music from what I understand. And your favourite venue, George, at the end of the pier, the Drop in the Ocean music venue there, they have got a fantastic covers band on tonight called the Stereo Kings, who are playing all the big popular rock songs, pop songs from the last few decades. They're at Drop in the Ocean tonight on the end of the pier. That is the Stereo Kings. So that's my pick for this evening in Eastbourne. Obviously the 30th anniversary firework finale at the Wish Tower Beach from 9 o'clock. Radio Airbourne are starting the party at 8 p.m. and they are supported by Frontier Fireworks, Elite Medical and the Eastbourne Hospitality Association, and it promises to be the most fantastic firework display this evening. Really looking forward to that.
It really does sound interesting if they're trying to get all those different blends in. You know, they're trying to support quite a lot of different activities in many ways, aren't they? And yeah, that's I mean, unique. Must be thousands of pounds. So yeah, let's hope we continue to raise enough money as well for things like that as well. After not just the air show, but fireworks displays as well. They cost an absolute fortune. So you know where to go. You just go to saveairborne.com. And you can donate as much as you want. If everybody just gave £1, actually, it would make a tremendous difference to providing this sort of entertainment for you. So we're expecting a very different aircraft coming up next in the guise of a Jet Provost, and in the hands today of David Gibbs, who until recently was also displaying many other aircraft. This aircraft coming out of a long family genre of aircraft known as Jet Provosts, and a very familiar name to many Royal Air Force pilots throughout the 60s right through to the 90s really, who trained on various marks of these aircraft. He's coming in from the left-hand side. Here we go. Oh, and what a lovely approach. Topside pass from David Gibbs in the Jet Provost Mark T5. He'll be putting it through its paces and a varied number of turns, a couple of wing overs and a few barrel rolls, maybe the odd half Cuban. We'll just see what he's going to say. All the pilots have a whole bag of display maneuvers they can put in depending on the wind and the conditions of each day. The iconic Jet Provost trained literally tens of thousands of British military pilots for 4 decades. And this particular aircraft is the very last iteration of development, the Jet Provost Mark V, and was built by the British Aircraft Corporation at Warton in 1970. It was registered as 324, X-ray Whiskey 324 that is, and was a pilot training aircraft at Royal Air Force Leeming. But it also featured in 2 of the well-known teams at the time, the Gemini Pair and the Swords display teams. Many people will be familiar with the Mark III we occasionally see on the display circuit. The whole family going back to the mid-1950s when the Royal Air Force issued a requirement for a new dedicated jet training aircraft. That was to replace the the Percival Provost. And the genre first flew in June 1954, the prototype out of Luton Airport, after which the Air Ministry ordered 10 Mark Is. That didn't take long for them to appreciate the usefulness and utility and need for something like the Jet Provost, and in 1957 a total of 40 Mark IIIs were ordered, featuring a more powerful Armstrong Siddeley Viper jet, ejector seats and a few other redesigns to the airframe as well, before culminating in 1967 with the pressurized T5. During the latter part of its service, this aircraft flew as a navigation trainer at Royal Air Force Finningley before being retired in 1993. Went through a number of civilian owners before being purchased by the very well-known Jeff Bell in 2007. He's put a massive amount of work into it, as you would imagine. Carried out a painstaking restoration, and as you can see there in its immaculate current condition in the beautiful sunlight we have. Now wearing the markings of its final service assignment with number 6 Flying Training School. That was at Finningley, and this aircraft currently based at East Midlands Airport. Unlike today's very much contract-driven stream to RAF training system, when the JP was in service, every pilot would fly the aircraft, often starting on the slower Mark III before progressing to the faster Mark V. This particular aircraft, though, is a Mark V-A, and the difference being predominantly the addition of the tip tanks you can see on the end of its wings. The ability there to give the aircraft longer endurance for longer sorties to teach future navigators of the Royal Air Force. You can see going through a number of very graceful maneuvers, 4-point hesitation turn. In fact, stopping after 3, continuing that turn around the corner. David John, as his full name is correct, was born in Southport, commenced his flying career, interestingly, in the Royal Navy, flying helicopters in the Fleet Air Arm. Became a fixed-wing instructor, however, on the Firefly and the Tutor, and then as an examiner with a Central Flying School, where he played a pivotal role in introducing the Grob Prefect into service. As a result of that, he transferred to the Royal Air Force in 2019, where he's currently employed as a training and standardization QFI. Putting over the top there, he'll be looking back over his shoulders again, checking a horizontal position of the wings, looking at the ocean, checking his speed and altitude as he comes out of the bottom. He spent 2 years flying the Tutor, which you saw earlier on today, but his real passion is doing what he's doing right now, flying vintage aircraft. He also flies a range of historic gliders, pistons and jets, as well as this Mark V. And a lovely slowish roll there, hanging in his straps for a moment before bending back out to sea. It's quite comfy, the T5, slightly larger cockpit, bigger canopy fitted to it as well, and of course the pressurization making it a lot more comfortable at higher altitudes. Very slow, very graceful demonstration. DJ now just positioning around this right-hand corner. This will be his final pass. You know what to do. He'll be taking a quick peek out of the cockpit as he goes by, so do give him a big wave and a cheer. All these guys giving up a lot of time at weekends and, of course, travelling around the country as well to make the deadlines of these air displays. So David John Gibbs in the Mark 5A Jet Provost. And very nicely done indeed.
Massive thanks to some of our sponsors this weekend for Airbourne. Birchwood Group are our silver sponsor this year, and they have been transporting our pilots in and out of Eastbourne. They have been using electric vehicles, so that has really reduced the carbon footprint of the show this year. And actually, thank you to all of those of you out there who've used our park and ride service this year. And if you're planning on coming back next year, which we obviously hope you are, please do look into that. It's a really great service, and I really think that the roads have been a lot quieter around the town, which is brilliant, because that again reduces the carbon footprint of the show overall. Thank you also to Caffins Eastbourne for supporting Radio Airbourne through the weekend, as they always do, and to Cloud Connects for providing the broadband services, keeping the whole show, all of the teams here running today. Euro Self-Drive also for transportation. So a few points as well, just to remind you: safety. Please look after each other, please look after the kids, and pick up all your litter. Please don't leave anything behind. Either use the big bins that are along the prom and on the Western Lawn site. We've closed the smaller ordinary bins. There are big black bins for refuse and big green bins for your recycling. So please help us reduce waste by using the bins and taking your rubbish home with you as and when you can. And if you would like to support Airbourne in becoming more sustainable in the future, we'd love to hear from you about your visit. Please visit the online survey at eastbourneairshow.com/survey. And if you're still out and about and you're with us and you're on the Western Lawns, please do say hello to the Air Bears. Ace and Amy, they're on the Western Lawns at the information stand. Kids can have their photo, well, adults could have their photo taken with the Air Bears. I think you'd like that, wouldn't you, George?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in need of a hug after 4 hard days here.
Well, here's your little Air Bear
that
we got
you.
the other day for your hug there.
Quick squeeze with the lady. Lovely.
But yeah, they've got fantastic souvenirs on the information stand, and there is 30th anniversary merchandise still for sale. Please do support the air show by getting some merch and popping any cash you have into the donation buckets, or scan a QR code which will take you directly to saveairborne.com to make that all important small, medium or large donation, helping us keep the air show flying.
Great. Well, just a minute or so to run now to our next fabulous vintage fighter formation. Well, keep your eyes peeled to the skies now. We've got an outstanding formation pair of fighters coming in, courtesy of Rolls-Royce. They come all the way down from East Midlands Airport. They're busy boys, and these are two very special aircraft indeed, cementing the great history that Rolls-Royce has had in developing not just combat aircraft, but of course half the world's aircraft and commercial fleet that we see. Here, coming in from our right-hand side, please welcome Merlin formation. What you're looking at there is P-51D Mustang and a Mark 19 Spitfire. Two very special, iconic aircraft you'll hear a lot more about, so we'll have some very straightforward pairs formation work first of all, and then they'll split apart, led by pilot Alistair Stegg-Williams, also the manager of the Heritage Flight for Rolls-Royce, and then alongside him Jim Schofield in the Spitfire. You wonder why this company may have these two aircraft? Well, it's essentially, of course, to cement their heritage in the world of aviation through engine design and modification and excellence, but also to inspire, educate and promote aviation heritage through the operation of these historically accurate machines, the engines and, of course, the artifacts that go with them. We love to see companies where they can showcasing their historic background design work and engineering excellence, but also encouraging youngsters to get involved through all the STEM promotional activities they do with media visits and other promotions and around air displays all over the country. But of course, as we've seen with the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight and the Blenheim Formation, it is also all about telling the story of and commemorating those who have fought for our country. I think these two guys are absolutely thrilled to be here today. It's just wonderful to have all this airspace on such a beautiful sunny afternoon, and for photographers out there as the sun captures the top sides of those aircraft, they're just looking absolutely splendid. Coming through now for a gentle barrel roll, again going through, arcing around the big imaginary beer barrel. The aircraft positioning shortly as they come around the turn. They'll be breaking apart. We'll see the Spitfire go through its paces and then concluded with Steg in the Mustang. So Steg parks up in a little piece of sky just off to our right hand side. Coming in on the left, Jim, consummate professional, very, very familiar with all marks of Spitfires, spends most of his weeks flying various types of Spitfire and taking many passengers on their 20-minute sorties as well. Right at the pinnacle, the peak end of the performance spectrum. You've heard us talk already today about the development of the Spitfire. You saw Mark 11 earlier on. That was the unpressurized version, but in the same role. This one, however, slightly different. The Mark 19's unarmed high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. This one was one of a batch of 79 Mark 19s built at Supermarine in Southampton. Powered, of course, differently, powered by the 2,000 horsepower Griffon 65 or 66, and representing the absolute pinnacle of the Spitfire's development in terms of speed and altitude capability, with a top speed of 440 miles an hour and a ceiling of 42,000 feet. This aircraft was delivered to the Central Photographic Reconnaissance Unit at Royal Air Force Benson back in January 1945, before then moving into Belgium and Holland He was engaged with 16th Squadron right up until the end of the war and participated in Operation Crossbow. You may remember that was all about detecting V1 and V2 Vengeance weapon launch sites. At the end of the war, it remained on duty in Germany right up until March 1946, when it came back to the UK and was placed in storage. But you may have heard my reference to the establishment of the Royal Air Force Historic Flight. Well, 853 was one of several Mark 19 Spitfires selected for conversion to conduct meteorological research known as the temperature and humidity of the upper air masses, shortened to THUM. And this one performed the last ever Spitfire THUM sortie on the 10th of June 1957. Along with the two other Mark 19s, this aircraft retired into ceremony and display duties, then to go on and form that very historic flight, the forerunner of today's Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Rolls-Royce bought the aircraft in 1996 to replace one of its own Mark 14 Spitfires. Now painted in number 16 Photographic Reconnaissance Squadron's colours, part of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, which the aircraft wore between January and June 1945. This aircraft very much for many years now has been the ambassador for Rolls-Royce, appearing at air displays and charity events and at many corporate functions as well, representing the heritage of the Spitfire alongside, of course, the Rolls-Royce engines that powered them. At the same time, it honours the pilots of all the nations who flew them and the men and women who built and maintained them. Great to just pause for a moment and listen to the distinctive growl of that Griffon engine. Very different from the Merlins we've heard earlier on, and of course the one that we're about to hear in just a minute. Jim just coming to the end of his solo display now. He'll give you one more flyby. You know what to do. You give him a wave. He'll almost certainly put in a roll before he departs, so he'll be upside down as he looks at you. But this is the first half of the Rolls-Royce Merlin formation, the wonderful Mark 19 Spitfire. Oh, and he's gone for the wing waggle instead of the roll. Fantastic. Beautiful aircraft. So look up high on your right-hand side now, and you'll see coming out of the skies as if to strafe or attack everybody down here on the beach. Steg Williams now winding this beautiful P-51 Mustang up to show off its paces. Quite the most successful long-range fighter escort of World War II. So although designed by the British to meet an urgent requirement for more fighters and with fighters with increased capability as well, the aircraft was initially fitted with Allison engines, but they weren't too happy with the performance at higher altitudes, and then from 1942 onwards the variations to the aircraft were developed, and the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine was tested in place of the Allison, proved to be an immediate success. Rolls-Royce then issued a license to Packard to make even more Merlin engines, and in 1943 it was installed in the P-51B and C models, but the perfect marriage of both engine and platform was made in 1944 with what you see here today, a P-51D, which additionally had a bubble canopy and 6 guns and proved to be one of the most iconic and potent fighters of all time. Well known for its bomber escort duties, virtually all the way to Berlin and back, had an incredible range of 2,000 miles. Carried a huge fuel capacity of 1,000 litres internally and 815 litres in the drop tanks. The maximum level speed of 430 miles an hour at 25,000 feet. But it was able to get up to 500 in a dive and a service ceiling very close to that of the Mark 19 Spitfire, just a little under 42,000 feet. The Griffin actually flew a lot earlier than most people imagine. The concepts were developed as far back as October 39 under the leadership of Joseph Smith. He was the successor and number 2 to R.J. Mitchell, of course, in an effort to provide a second power string for the Spitfire. The first of the Griffin engine Spitfires flying as early as November 1941. Although not produced in the same numbers of those Merlin engine variants, they nonetheless kept the Spitfire right at the forefront of piston engine fighter development. By the end of the war, this type had pretty much replaced all the earlier Mark 11s that you saw earlier on this afternoon. A total of 225 were built, with production ceasing in early 1946. Here, though, we're concentrating on the P-51. And this particular mount was constructed as P-51D 25NA, leased to Rolls-Royce Heritage, rolling off the North American production line at Inglewood in California in mid-1944. First delivered to the United States Army Air Force in July 1945. But did not see combat during World War II. It is believed that the aircraft spent most of its service life in various training units in the USA. But we do know it was delivered to the Royal Canadian Air Force and served with 403 City of Calgary Squadron right up until April 1959, when it was retired. So you may wonder why this aircraft is flying alongside the Mark 19 in the Rolls-Royce stable. Well, it's of course to reinforce the Griffin-powered elements of the Mark 19 with the Merlin engine flying here, and the marriage of both Merlin-powered aircraft into the heritage flight. The Mustang was seen as a perfect fit with global appeal and celebrating the historic and ongoing relationship between Rolls-Royce and the United States Air Force. The Mustang that you see here was originally owned by Sean Patrick. He was the co-owner of the aircraft then known as the Shark, and was approached about leasing the aircraft to Rolls-Royce. It was back in April 2020 that it re-emerged from a repaint and refurbishment in the colours of Colonel Donald Blakesley, commander of the legendary 4th Fighter Group. They were known as the Debden Eagles, and it was repainted to ensure that the Mustang was a very accurate representation of Blakesley's war mount. So a very fitting partner to the Mark 19. This particular aircraft, however, having flown personally by Donald Blakesley, was also nicknamed the War Horse, a nod to the Mustang's name seat, and Blakesley's radio call sign, Horseback Leader. And now coming in for his final pass, I believe, may well squeeze one more out of him. Alistair Stegg-Williams in the P-51D Mustang. And now coming in, sweeping in from high above, right to left, the penultimate aircraft of our 4th day, in the hands from Rolls-Royce, both aircraft based at East Midlands near Derby, and of course, unsurprisingly, Alistair throwing in a victory roll there as he departs off to the eastern side, and a marvellous job. Well, it's never over till it's over, and boy, have we got a finale coming your way very shortly.
I would say hang on to your hats for that one. You'll never guess who I've just seen go past, and that is our very own MP, Josh Babarindi. So he's out there with a collection bucket. So if you see him, please do pop any cash you have in the collection bucket to help raise funds to keep the air show flying. So coming up tonight, the wonderful party down on the beach at the Wish Tower slopes, the 30th anniversary fireworks finale, which is going to be an absolutely fantastic display inspired by D-Day 80, the Red Arrows Diamond Anniversary, and 30 years of Airbourne. It's going to be very colourful and sparkly. Supported by the Eastbourne Hospitality Association, Elite Medical and Frontier Fireworks. Radio Airbourne starting the party at 8 p.m. and they are supported by Caffins again this year. Fireworks at 9 p.m. So just a few reminders for you. If you are on the beach, please, and in fact anywhere on the site today, please do take all of your rubbish home with you. Please don't leave anything behind. We do have large bins along the prom and on the western lawns for separate rubbish and recycling. Please do use those. And a few of our supporters for today's shows, some more thank yous for Birchwood Ford, The View, Cumberland and Lansdowne Hotels for accommodating display teams, Eurosoft Drive for transportation, Cloud Connects for their Wi-Fi support, Environment First for all of the recycling provision, PRG Marketing Communications for sponsoring and designing the wonderful 30th anniversary souvenir program, Pure Print for providing the printed daily flying times, More Radio for all of their support leading up to the show as well, the Neighbourhood First staff for all of their operational support, OHM Energy for the sustainability zone, Signtech for supplying signage across the show, Stagecoach for the park and bus service, which I understand has been very successful again this year. If you're coming back next year, and we really hope you are, please do look into using the park and ride service there. All of the 30 local businesses who have supported this year's souvenir program with brilliant prizes for the 30 prize giveaway, and there is still time to enter that up until the 31st of August. The Rotary Club of Helsham and team of volunteers for their support with all the bucket collections. So over to you, George.
Well, indeed, because we got some excitement coming your way now. Literally a few seconds to go. Please welcome from the left-hand side at 600 miles an hour, it's Turbo in the Typhoon. Yes, absolutely outstanding, isn't it? Breaks off to liftoff, 8 seconds, breaks off to 35,000 feet, and 1.5 times the speed of sound in just 2.5 minutes. You'll be looking up the jet pipe of 40,000 pounds of thrust from 2 Eurojet EJ200 engines. As he bent it round, pulling G right up to around 9 GH and -3. An absolutely enthralling display going on here now as he uses so little airspace to squeeze in the agility and capability of this frontline aircraft. David Turnbull is an instructor on 29th Squadron up at Coningsby. Of course, got a day job teaching people how to fly this amazing machine. And you see there, lovely bottom side, underside view there with its D-Day colours, affectionately known as Moggy, this aircraft, to the rest of the team. There is a bit of a story behind that, and but more importantly, showing you the hard points that have all those amazing ASRAAM, AMRAAM missiles, paveway enhanced freefall bombs, laser guided bombs, and of course the all-important Mauser 27mm cannon as well. It's a real powerhouse of machine. And you'll see in a moment it doesn't just fly fast, but it flies exceptionally slow as well. Really has become a very accomplished multi-role aircraft, designed back in the mid-80s, and set to serve for a good couple of decades yet. What we call a bit of freestyle flying here. Again, if you look closely through your lenses or binoculars, you'll see all the hard points for those various weapons as well underneath. Of course, it's not just about training up at Conisby, it is also about operations, because they're the people that man the UK Protection Force, and that is, of course, the Quick Reaction Alert, protecting the borders of UK day in, day out, all through the year. Got a little bit of help on board, of course. Got some G mitigation and suppression equipment, which helps. There's a chest jacket, clearly what we call the G pants, and a pretty comfortable cockpit as well. It's quite nice up front. It's a cozy little office. You don't hear much noise at all. And now this can be tricky, a very slow roll from a very big, heavy jet. Fair amount of practice and control clearly going into that, but now we've got quite an established number of Typhoon display pilots. He's got a serious number of mentors up there in Coningsby as well. As he brings it around the corner now, he'll slow the jet right down. Is he doing it now? Oh no, we're going to a bit of carefree handling first of all, where literally you can handle it, but you can't really make a mistake because the onboard computer will correct that, and so will little barking Betty issue your warning. But now the stick back into his chest, the jet's come back to around about 120 miles an hour. Now that's pretty extraordinary for an aircraft capable of such supersonic speeds. Here the little canards at the front are twitching away. They're keeping absolute control, so the aircraft, whatever turbo does now, it will still remain in controlled flight. Right on the edge of what for any other aircraft would be very, very close to the stall indeed. But now he kicks in the afterburners. And recovers with consummate ease. Stretching it out now again, pulling to get around the turn. You've got to pull a lot of G anyway, otherwise you use an awful lot more airspace going at the speeds that he's flying. So he's pulling in that 9G again to get around this turn. Easing it off. And now he's bending, he's pushing away from himself, so the negative G, or the blood, is squeezing his head. And I know other Typhoon pilots who squirm when they see that particular maneuver. It's very, very uncomfortable indeed. Bit of swath coming off of the wings as well. Occasionally that's just humidity condensing as it breaks away from the wing surface instead of flying over it. Coming back in on the 45. Keep your eyes on it. It's a fast-moving, intense display, this. Bending around again, G coming on. He'll be puffing and panting a little bit, but again, it always feels much more intense down here on the ground than it does inside the aircraft. Pleading a max rate turn. It's almost effortless when you see it going through something straightforward as a barrel roll. Hard to imagine just what a big, heavy beast of an aircraft this is. But now he's got his eyes focused on you because we're coming to the tail end of this air show now. He's going to point it at you, and then he's just going to go absolutely vertical, sticking the jet on its tailpipe and going straight to the high blue heavens. That's David Turnbull, Turbo as he's known to his mates, in the fabulous Typhoon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is sadly what we call a wrap. The end of 4 fabulous days of this 30th anniversary airborne party we've had here in just spectacular weather. I hope you've all enjoyed it. We certainly have. It's been a great deal of fun, and just a splendid holiday in many, many respects indeed. Please make sure you pick everything up, won't you, or take it with you. But most importantly, go to saveairborne.com. Let's do this again, shall we, for a couple more years. Did you enjoy yourself?
Absolutely. What a brilliant few days we've had. So lucky with the weather.
Yeah, very much. It makes it, doesn't it? It makes it. But, you know, to put on an air show as well, we know it's not easy. Absolutely terrific stuff indeed. Go careful out there. Don't rush around. No need to rush and panic. Plenty of things to do yet. Visiting the Western Lawns, teas and coffees, of course. Lots of really good restaurants. And it's just a pleasant afternoon to chill out on the beach. Yeah, absolutely. The Western Lawns is open until 6 p.m., the showground there. So please do go up and visit. The RAF personnel are still there throughout the air show. Chance to meet some of the teams behind the Typhoon, the Tutor, and the Battle of Britain Memorial flight, and still a chance to have a look at that Chinook facsimile. So as well as meeting the RAF Careers team, the Field Catering team are on hand. They may still be cooking, go and have a look. And RAF Music, we're playing some live jazz. I don't know if I saw that actually. Well, there you go. There's plenty more there. Well, right now, I think it's time for us to take a break as well. I'm ready for a cup of tea. Are you ready for a break? I think so. I just wanted to thank my team here, Fiona Wallace next door to me, Bobby, who's been playing away at the electronics behind us all weekend, and upstairs from me is David Borton and the TSA flight management team, who've done their absolute utmost to bring you the most exciting flying display over the next 40 days. But congratulations go to Pete Martin and the rest of the Eastbourne Borough Council team, who've laid on the most fantastic outing for us here. And fingers crossed, we bring it all back for the next 30 years as well. But we need your help. Right now, it's time for you to tune into 87.7 and take your evening away right up to the fireworks with the sounds of Radio Airborne. Good night.